Everybody, and welcome back to another Game News Roundup, where we go over this gaming news, sales stuff over the last bunch of days. As always, these are live streamed, twitch.tv/TrunksWD, if you want to check these out. And always, if you enjoy these, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment, and all that stuff down below. But yeah, we have some gaming news to go over, and then we'll go over some sales stuff at the end. So first things first. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission, in a newly filed order, has largely denied Sony's request to stop or limit Microsoft's subpoena, requesting it to divulge confidential documents. The main thing is that Sony now has to reveal its third-party exclusivity deals through 2019 to present. Microsoft had requested Sony to provide a copy of every content licensing agreement it had entered with any third-party publisher between January 1st, 2012 and present. Sony said this had no apparent probative value and it would require a manual review of over 150,000 contact records with about 60,000 companies, which seems a bit much for gaming companies. I don't know if there's 60,000, but anyways, the FTC agreed with Microsoft's argument, which is that the case is focusing on how the Activision Blizzard acquisition could lead to IP becoming Xbox exclusive and how that could negatively impact competition. This meant it is important to understand Sony's own exclusivity deals and their effect on industry competitiveness. Again, FTC did grant one request by Sony, that is to limit the range date from January 1st, 2019 to the present, rather than going back to 2012. Another Sony request the FTC denied was to not include files being handled by some Sony staff members, as Sony says many of them were in Japanese and it would be more time-consuming and expensive to find them all. Microsoft reverse. We know some deals that Sony has in place. I mean, considering Final Fantasy, 7 Remake, Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2, Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken, several Square Enix games have been released as PlayStation 5 console exclusives. Even from Bethesda, it was before Microsoft acquired them, as a Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop were like one-year timed exclusives on PS5. Console time exclusives. I think they were out on PC as well. Anyways, the FTC says Sony did not persuasively explain why searching for and producing files present an undue burden to Sony. According to Sony's attempt to resist discovery on the basis of undue burden is rejected. Sony also tried to quash the request that Sony must produce all drafts of and communications regarding PlayStation's president and CEO Jim Ryan's declaration titled Declaration FTC on Microsoft Activision Blizzard transaction, dated December 5th, 2022. The FTC denied this request, saying Sony has failed to demonstrate that request 3 should be quashed and the request is rejected. So FTC is forcing Sony to reveal every third-party exclusivity deal they have with, third-party developers in the gaming industry dating back to January 2019. Does this mean we'll get some juicy details? We'll see. A lot of the times when we get reports released, you just see one big word a lot. Redacted. 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 Just a bunch of redacted. So I was like, look at this information. Oh, redacted. It's like, come on. Let's give us some stuff with sales figures. It's like, oh, why is it redacted? It's a shame. But, it is what it is. But FTC and Microsoft will be able to see all of Sony's third-party exclusive deals over the last bunch of years. Let's see. Another report by Reuters. European Union Regulators, the European Commission, is likely to approve Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. The remedies Microsoft has offered are likely enough to address the European Commission's concerns, according to the sources. They claim Microsoft won't have to sell off any Activision Blizzard assets, and the deadline for the EU regulators to decide on the deal is April 25th. Microsoft in a statement said it was committed to offering effective and easily enforceable solutions that address the European Commission's concerns. Our commitment is to grant long-term 100% equal access to Call of Duty to Sony, Steam, Nvidia, and others, Nintendo, and preserves the deal's benefit to gamers and developers and increase competition in the market. Again, Microsoft has signed a 10-year deal with NVIDIA to bring all Xbox games that are available on PC to NVIDIA's GeForce Now cloud gaming service, as well as signing a 10-year legal agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms. If, of course, these are the one with Nintendo is if the Activision Blizzard acquisition is approved. The one with NVIDIA is done. It's not just Call of Duty. It's any first-party Xbox game on PC coming to will be available on NVIDIA GeForce Now cloud gaming service. In the coming probably months, they are working on it, but it will take a little bit of time to make them work on there. But yeah, and with these new deals in place, it has eased concerns from the European Commission. Now, I should mention, the biggest hurdles, I mean, FTC in the US, yes, is a big hurdle, but I feel like the UK regulators is the biggest hurdle. Like, that is the one that's probably going to make or break the deal. Even if it's I guess if it's approved in the US and European Union, that might sway the UK regulators to potentially approve it, but I don't know. We'll find out hopefully April 25th or April 26th when these deadlines hit, or before that. At least for the UK and European Union. Speaking of, Microsoft and Activision Blizzard, they met with UK regulators last week over, well, the deal of Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. It is to work out proposals and remedies over the acquisition. This is according to a report from Bloomberg, who spoke with people familiar with the discussions. Microsoft lawyers attended a private hearing in London with the CMA to discuss the regulators' provisional findings and assess the feasibility of proposed remedies, according to the sources. The sources claim Microsoft is willing to pay for a third-party monitor to oversee its compliance with remedies as a way to relieve the CMA from having to devote resources to make sure the tech giant follows through on its promises. The CMA, with its provisional assessment, did leave the door open for behavioral remedies. Activision Blizzard also met with CMA separately last week, and another hearing with Sony is scheduled for next week, or being sometime this week. This was last week. The CMA CEO on behavioral remedy said behavioral remedies are disfavored, particularly in a sector where technology or business models are changing quickly. U.S. and UK regulators haven't been the biggest fan of behavioral remedies in recent years. The meetings do come a week after Microsoft and Activision Blizzard lawyers met with European Union regulators in Brussels. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard plan to submit a revised proposal to the European Commission this week or last week. According to people familiar with the matter, the EU regulators extended their deadline deadlines by 10 days to April 25th, and the UK deadline is April 26th, from what I remember off the top of my head. So yeah, Microsoft Activision meeting with regulators. They met with regulators in the European Union and the UK regulators. And I'm sure they've met with the FTC in the US multiple times over this deal. So yeah, there's always something going on every week. The Activision Blizzard acquisition. Who knows? Maybe by May it'll be approved or not approved. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go over the coming months. Feels like this deal's just been going on. I've been talking about it every week. There's always something. But you know what? I am kind of sick of hearing about it, but they get good views. People want to be up to date on this information if some people get sick of hearing about the acquisition. But yeah, they get good views. They get lots of comments on the website. So yeah, I keep writing about it because of those reasons. Yeah, moving on. Survey. Microsoft did commission YouGov to perform a survey, separate third-party survey, asking PlayStation users if they would switch to Xbox if Microsoft made Call of Duty an Xbox console exclusive. And the survey results were shared by Microsoft with Axios. The survey reveals that just 3% of PlayStation users would make the switch to Xbox if Call of Duty was no longer released on that platform. If, basically, Microsoft made Call of Duty an Xbox and PC exclusive, because Microsoft does release all their games day and date on PC nowadays. My corporate vice president of Microsoft's competition law group stated, as we have said all along, it makes zero business sense to take Call of Duty off of PlayStation. The lawyer says that the survey suggesting just 3% of PlayStation would make the switch to Xbox was too small to hurt Sony's ability to compete and too small to make a withholding strategy profitable for Xbox. 3%, let's say hypothetically it's exactly 3%, there's about 117 million PS4s out there, say 3% of that for this current generation make the Switch. We're only talking about, what, 3 and a bit million PlayStation users swapping. Now, this is just according to one survey, according to people asked in the survey. There's always a margin of error. But also, Microsoft has said they don't plan on making Call of Duty not available on PlayStation. They plan on keeping it like they do with Minecraft, available on every platform. Microsoft's survey also found that 10.5% of Call of Duty players who rank the franchise as one of their two favorites would make the switch. So, 10.5% of people who play Call of Duty, who rank the franchise as one of their top 2 franchises, would make the switch to Xbox. However, this is in contrast with the UK's Competition and Markets Authority own study, which estimated that 15% of avid Call of Duty players on PlayStation would make the switch to Xbox, and another 9% would switch to PC, for about a total of about 24%. This includes those who... This figure, though, includes those who play 10 hours of Call of Duty and spent at least $100 on the series in the past year. 15% of that figure. The CMA originally stated that PlayStation is likely to lose a significant share if Microsoft made Call of Duty an Xbox console exclusive. Microsoft has continued to state they won't take Call of Duty away from PlayStation. Will treat the franchise the same way it does Minecraft. But yeah, survey suggesting that just 3% of PlayStation owners would make the switch to Xbox if Call of Duty became an Xbox console exclusive. But obviously, we do know there's a legally binding agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo consoles for 10 years if the deal is approved. And Microsoft has given the same deal to Sony, but Sony has not signed the deal. But I'm sure Microsoft will keep releasing Call of Duty on PlayStation. Probably. Again, we'll see. We'll see how things happen in the future. We'll find out. And yeah, Activision Blizzard. I think that's about it for today on Activision Blizzard stuff. So, Night Dive Studios developer Modern Vintage Gamer, in a new video posted to YouTube, suggests Nintendo will face challenges with backwards compatibility with the successor to the Nintendo Switch. If Nintendo is to move away from the Tegra X1 chip, which we all feel strongly that they will probably do, current Switch games won't work on new hardware. This is without recompiling the games to target that hardware, said the developer. The Switch uses the Tegra chip from NVIDIA, which also powered the NVIDIA Shield from 2015 to 2018. Some suggestions given by the developer was to use emulation, similar to how you can play original Xbox and Xbox 360 games on the Xbox One and Series X and S. That backwards compatibility is using emulation to make that work. Also, it's like how third-party emulators work on PC. The one downside is the amount of processing power is required to run the game, so the Switch 2 or the Switch Successor would have to be a decent amount more powerful than the current Switch in order for that to be feasible. And the Steam Deck has reportedly has had struggled to emulate Switch games using a Switch emulator that is available. Another suggestion is also to include the Tegra X1 chip inside every Switch Successor, though obviously that could significantly raise the price of the platform if Nintendo were to do so. So I would probably go around Nintendo moving away from the Tegra X1 using more powerful hardware. It makes sense to use for the Switch Successor. And then I guess emulation possibly, or offering next generation patches for Switch games. Re-releasing the games again on the Switch Successor. You would think backwards compatibility would kind of make sense for the Switch 2 or whatever it's called. If you think about most Nintendo platforms have had some form of backwards compatibility. Obviously the NES did because that was Nintendo's first console, and actually the SNES didn't as well. Actually, I'm realizing, and then the N64, okay, the cartridge-based ones didn't. But I think the Wii was backwards compatible with the GameCube. The Wii U definitely ran Wii games. Switch actually itself is not backwards compatible. Is the Game Boy Color is backwards compatible to the Game Boy. The Game Boy Advance is backwards compatible to the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. The DS, I think, was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, and the 3DS was definitely backwards compatible with the DS. So I would have thought that being backwards compatible with the Switch would have made sense, but we'll see. This is just a suggestion from a developer saying, if Nintendo were to move away from the Tegra X1 chip, backwards compatibility would be much harder to do and get to work well. But, there's not really been a whole lot in a Switch Successor. I probably, as I've said many times, March 2024 would probably be the earliest I would expect a Switch successor. Maybe not even until March 2025, depending on how Switch sales continue through this year. Is probably, and obviously Nintendo wants a strong lineup of games for the Switch 2. Or the Switch successor. Whatever it'll be called. We'll say Switch 2 because I don't know. How often does Nintendo do that? Just add a 2 at the end of a console. Oh yeah, they did. I don't think they've actually ever done that. They added a 64. Or a 3 in front with the DS, the 3DS. You know, and then it was Wii U instead of Wii 2. And Super Nintendo instead of, you know, Nintendo 2 or NES 2 or whatever. We'll find out. You never know what Nintendo's going to do with their next platform. I'm hoping it's basically just the same concept as a Switch. Just more powerful with modern tech. Where they could still sell it for, you know, $300, $350 at launch. Even though the Switch has yet to see a formal price cut. It's still available for $300 like it was at launch. Although the Switch Lite is $200 and the OLED is $350. Let's see. Square Enix president has stepping down. Square Enix announced Square Enix president and representative director Yosuke Matsuda will be stepping down and replaced by director Takashi Kiryu. The change is pending approval at the 43rd annual shareholders meeting, which is scheduled for June 2023, as well as the board of directors meeting to be held afterwards. Square Enix says the reason for the proposed change is due to the rapid change of business environment surrounding the entertainment industry. The proposed change is intended to reshape the management team with the goal of adopting ever-evolving technological innovations and maximizing the creativity of Square Enix's groups in order to deliver even greater entertainment to its customers around the world. Also, a lot of recent games from Square Enix has underperformed. Other than Final Fantasy, I know like Forspoken definitely underperformed. When they had Crystal Dynamics and Eidos was under Square Enix. Several of those games underperformed. The Marvel's Avengers. I think the Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game also underperformed compared to Square Enix expectations. So yeah, Square Enix president is stepping down. As long as it's approved by the board, potentially in June he'll be stepping down. Game Boy Advance's Metroid Fusion is coming to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack on March 8th. So in 2 days at the time of this recording, Metroid Fusion for anyone who is subscribed to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. The game will be available again as part of the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online library. And Metroid Fusion originally released for the GBA in North America and Europe in November 2002, and then in Japan in February 2003. So yeah, recently Game Boy and Game Boy Advance have been made available on Nintendo Switch Online. Game Boy I think is just the base Nintendo Switch Online. Well, the Game Boy Advance requires the expansion pack, which is $50 a year versus $20 a year for the basic one. Also announced today, Hogwarts Legacy last gen versions have been delayed by about a month. From April 4th to May 5th, PS4 and Xbox One versions of Hogwarts Legacy. So people have been waiting for the last gen versions. You're going to have to wait a bit longer. Makes me think developers are having trouble getting it to run well on the last gen consoles. Being delayed. Also, the Switch is still coming to the Switch. It's still coming to the Switch. On July 25th. It has not been delayed, the Switch version of Hogwarts Legacy. But we'll see with the last gen versions being delayed and the Switch being a lot less powerful than the PS4 and Xbox One. We'll see. Unless it's just a cloud version, which we haven't heard anything about it being a cloud version. So yeah, the official Hogwarts Legacy Twitter account said, "We're overwhelmed with gratitude for the response to Hogwarts Legacy from fans around the globe. The team is working hard to develop the best experience on all platforms, and we need more time to do this. Hogwarts Legacy will launch for PS4 and Xbox One May 5th, 2023. Again, about a month later than the original date. Honestly, I'd rather games be delayed and be better and run better than to be released in a broken state. That's been happening quite a bit lately. Even if games aren't completely broken, or if like a PC version of a port of a game has had issues, well, the console version runs fine. So yeah, publisher Paradox Interactive and developer Colossal Order today announced City Skylines 2 for the PS5, Series X, and S, PC, and Xbox Game Pass. Will be coming out sometime later this year. So if you're a fan of City Skylines, we're actually getting a sequel. I thought that developers originally, I was thinking, Are they going to go the Minecraft route? You know, it's still Minecraft. They've just been adding new content to Minecraft every year, the new update. Or whatever, every couple years. Whatever it ends up being. But they'd be doing that with City Sky with new updates or new packs and new content. But nope, we've got a full sequel, City Skylines 2. So if anyone plays City Skylines, be excited. And there was an announcement trailer, mainly CG, not actual gameplay. But if you want to check it out, you can look it up on YouTube. I've been hit with copyright issues before, you know, been demonetized by showing certain videos and trailers on here. So I will not be doing that at the moment. So moving on to sales stuff, we have UK report for February is now available. Reported by Games Industry. PlayStation 5 was the best-selling console in the UK in February 2023, with sales up 316% year-on-year and up 27% compared to January 2023. And PS5 sales are up 180% year-to-date compared to last year. It should be noted that the PS5 had severe shortages in early 2022, so that 316% increase. Well, sales obviously are really good now. It's not quite as crazy. Especially if we've seen like Japan, we're selling like 50, 60, 70,000 units every single week. We're probably talking like 80 some odd thousand for the PS5, 70 something thousand for the PS5 around there in the UK. And sales for Xbox Series X and S increased. Yeah, PlayStation PS5 has actual stock now. You can actually go to retailers and actually see it available in stores. Crazy, I know. But yeah, Series X and S sales increased 21% month on month. And are up 15% compared to February of last year. This is after in January sales were actually down year on year. On year-to-date, Series X and S sales are down 5.3%. So January and February of 2023 compared to January and February of 2022, sales are down 5.3%. Sales were down by a decent amount in January, year over year, while in February they've been up, but not quite enough to make up the difference in January. Oh yeah, and the Series X and S was the second best-selling console, which meant Switch is in third place, but sales are really starting to drop. Sales were down 15% for the Switch in February compared to January, and 29% year on year. And there were over 143,000 video game consoles sold in the UK in, that should say February. I will update after this. In February, and this is up 65% year on year and 14% month on month. And there were 2.8 million physical and digital games sold in the UK in February, which is up 11% year on year. Mainly due to the huge success of Hogwarts Legacy. It is by far the biggest game in February, with sales 100% higher than last year's Elden Ring. And after just 3 weeks, he's already on the verge of outselling lifetime Elden Ring. Says, "Hey, Alyssa, how are you doing? How is League going? You winning? Hopefully." Yes, and Hogwarts Legacy is already the 6th best-selling game in the UK of the last 12 months. So 3 weeks of sales, 6th best-selling game of the last 12 months. Atomic Heart debuted in 17th place with 85% of sales on PS5 and PC, but it should be noted, game is available on Xbox Game Pass. The Last of Us HBO TV series continues to help boost sales. Last of Us Part 2 sales are more than double month on month. And Last of Us Remastered sales are up by over 50%, and Last of Us Part 1 sales also saw an increase, but the figure was not provided of how much it increased. Also, there are no Nintendo games in the top 10, but Nintendo does not share digital sales of its games. And now going into the VGChartz estimates, sales comparison articles. Go over these really quick here. For January 2023, PS5 versus the PS4. The PS5 continues to track behind the PS4. Shortages have not helped for sales for sure. But the gap did shrink in January, as you can see right there, by 445,000 units. And the PS4 is ahead by 4.97 million units. An estimated 3.7 million PS5 sold versus 36.7 million PS4 sold. PS5 continues to track behind the PS4, but the gap should be shrinking over the next bunch of months as there is now stock available of the PS5 and demand is starting to be met. With sales still being up quite a bit in mainland Europe compared to last year. Sales are up pretty much everywhere. They're up an insane amount in Japan. They're up, as you see, a decent amount in the UK, and even more so when I'm seeing in Europe than the UK. And the US is up, but at least in January, it wasn't up by nearly as much as anywhere else in the world. but Sony had already been focusing more of its stock in the US, so that is not a big surprise. And now, Xbox Series X and S versus the Xbox One sales comparison. Over the last holidays, the brain fart, the Xbox One had been shrinking the gap to the Series X and S. The Xbox One for the equivalent months had been outselling the Series X and S in the last holiday months. But in January, the Series X and S did sell a bit more than the Xbox One by about 170,000 units. So the gap did shrink to a bit under a million by the end of the last holidays, but is now back over a million, 1.16 million. According to our latest estimates based on the available data we have, and as always, as more data becomes available, we do adjust our estimates to become more accurate. January 20, Series X and S has grown its lead by about 500,000 over the last 12 months. So as you can see, the last holiday and the holiday before that, the gap did shrink a bit, and then gap grew, shrunk, growing again, at least in January. And if anyone was wondering about the February estimates, at the time of this recording, Japan estimates will be out later this week. Europe for February, all of February, Japan estimates will be out later this week, probably on Thursday, the 8th. And then Europe estimates will be out sometime, probably early next week. Maybe Monday or Tuesday. Or Wednesday. Think about it, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And the first half of next week, most likely Tuesday. Will be out. And then the rest of the world, Americas and other parts of the world, will be out at the end of March, because the monthly report for the US ain't coming out until towards the end of March. So we'll be waiting on data, as we made a change to go to posting the estimates monthly, waiting for the monthly data to come in, which means the initial estimates will be more accurate than they were before. It's just things will be delayed. Even though we are still posting the weekly estimates, it's all the weeks in a month at once. And by region. Anyways, PS5 versus Series X and S. The PS5 has continued to grow its lead. It is now at over 11 million units. The PS5 is ahead of the Series X and S. In the latest month, the PS5 outsold the X and S by about 800,000. In the last 12 months, has grown its lead by about 5 million units. Although the gap is smaller this gen than it was last gen, since the PS5 is nearly 5 million behind the PS4 when you align launches, and the Series X and S is ahead of the Xbox One by a bit over 1 million units. So the gap of last generation was more like about 17 plus million after the same amount of months. As I've predicted for this generation, we'll see how things go by the end. We'll see how the heavy hitters help PS5 sales and Xbox sales, this year with, Starfield for the Xbox and Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5. But I've been thinking, by the end of this generation, the gap will be smaller than last generation, but not like it was on the PS3 and 360 days, with the two consoles finished within a few million units of each other. Instead of 117 million for the PS4 and a little over 50 million for the Xbox One, we're probably, talking a bit more for the Series X and S and a bit less for the PS5 compared to the PS4. But although, looking how sales are this generation, we might end up seeing this generation outselling the last generation, at least when you combine the Xbox and PlayStation sales and looking at generation over generation. I feel like with the shortages and the pandemic, this generation might be a year or two longer than the last generation. Might be. Maybe. We'll see how things go over time. And the Nintendo Switch versus the best-selling Nintendo platform of all time, and the second best-selling second best-selling gaming platform of all time, best-selling Nintendo platform of all time, Nintendo DS. Has been, as you can see here, it actually was ahead for a bit, and then DS sales went nuts, and the gap had been growing in favor of the DS compared to the Switch, which it grew to, about 14-ish million. And then in the latest holidays, the gap did shrink, although we're hitting the DS next holiday soon, where the gap will grow again. But then DS sales quickly fall off, so if the Switch needs better legs than the DS to have any chance of outselling the DS lifetime. After 71 months, we have the Switch at 121.8 million versus 131.4 million for the DS, with the DS ahead by about 9.5 million. And yeah, in the latest month, the DS grew its lead by 200,000, and in the last 12 months, the DS has grown its lead by 3.8 million. So it needs the Switch needs better legs. The DS sold about 154.02 million units lifetime, which means the Switch needs to sell another 32.19 million units to catch up to the DS's lifetime sales and to outsell it. We will see how things go. Looking at how much sales have already dropped in January for the Switch year on year. Sales were good, but since they are dropping, we'll see. Again, we have yet to see a proper price cut for the Switch. If it gets a proper price cut, maybe that'll help boost sales. And we do have Tears of the Kingdom, new Zelda game coming out in May, I believe it is. But after that, there have been rumors and rumblings that is the last major title from Nintendo for the Switch. Is the upcoming Zelda game. And then, they'll then shift their focus on the launch lineup and new games for the next gen. They will be releasing other games for the Switch. It's just the last major title. Big Zelda game, or big 3D Mario game, or 2D Mario game, or Mario Kart, or whatnot. Even though I know Metroid Prime 4 has been in development for who knows how many years. We did get Metroid Prime remastered. But, these are rumors. Who knows, maybe Nintendo release some more major games on the Switch. Or Tears of the Kingdom might be the last one. I don't know. We will find out. I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch Successor launches with, the next big 3D Mario game. And we'll get Mario Kart 9 early, within that first year of its release. Maybe even some collections, or a Game of the Year or edition or Director's Cut of Tears of the Kingdom with, maybe some extra content. DLC, if that's the thing, included, or I don't know. A lot of the games on the Switch were a lot of Wii U games re-released with, new content. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Mario Kart 8 was originally a Wii U game. Ooh, excuse me. So we'll see. And again, as we mentioned earlier about backwards compatibility, it sounds like Nintendo might face some challenges getting backwards compatibility to work well with the Switch. According to a developer, we'll see. We'll find out. So, again, the February estimates, again, Japan will be posted this Thursday, March 8th. I'm just wanting to look at the last few monthly sales comparisons for January posted first. We'll get the Japan estimates for January posted, get the main breakdown article of the Japan sales. Another one of the weekly articles is now becoming a monthly article. Get that one posted afterwards as well. And then I'll be starting the February 2023 monthly sales comparisons with Japan figures. And then we'll get the Europe estimates out for next week. And then there's going to be a bit of a gap between that and the Americas and rest of the world sales. So, but yeah, that should do it for today's Game News Roundup. Again, if you enjoy these, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment down below if anything else to add. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time for some more Game News Roundup.